Welcome. Welcome to our first Vincent Hosang Entrepreneurship Program webinar series. I'm so happy that we are able to do this for our students during this time, or supporters, or partners, or mentors, or bootcamp facilitators. Thank you, everybody, for being able to come to the webinar. We are going to start in just a few minutes. So just give us about 5 more minutes to see if anybody else is going to hop on, and then we're going to start, okay? Thank you for joining. And please, everyone, cameras on is welcome, so we can be as interactive as possible, and we're going to have a good session. So just 5 more minutes, and then we're going to start. Thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Ashley Rose Davis. I'm the program coordinator for the Vincent Hosang Entrepreneurship Program. And through the program, we offer the Vincent Hosang Venture Competition. Today, we're hosting our first webinar titled Entrepreneurial Finance. Our moderator for this session is going to be Mrs. Venetia Christian Barnes. She's also our boot camp presenter for our venture finance boot camp for our students. Venetia will now introduce our speaker for today, Mr. David Mullings.
Thank you, Ashley. And thank you for the pleasure of doing the introduction for Mr. Mullings. So David Mullings is the founder and chairman and CEO of Blue Maho Capital Partners, Inc., a private investment firm focused on providing U.S. retail investors access to a portfolio of public and private equity in the Caribbean. He's also a director of Fund Black Founders, a crowdfunding platform for Black-owned companies in the USA. He serves on the advisory board for the Development Bank of Jamaica's Mentorship, Innovation, and Entrepreneurship Program, the advisory board for the Caribbean School of Data, funded by Google.org and managed by the Mona School of Business and Management. David is also a member of the Board of Advisors of Kingston Creative, a movement with the mission to make downtown Kingston a vibrant center for creatives and creative entrepreneurship in the Caribbean. It is my pleasure to introduce to you all David Mullings.
David? I hope he didn't drop off. David? Are you here with us? I see where you're on, but all right, let us just see. David, we're not hearing you. I think I see your mic moving to indicate that you're talking. 1 second, everyone.
Me now, Ashley?
Yes, I'm hearing you now.
Okay, yeah. So the mic itself, I got a Blue Yeti mic today, so I could have better sound quality. So the mic itself was muted on the mic on the computer.
Oh, okay. All right.
So, and then my video is up. I'm not seeing my video, but it says my video should be up any minute.
All right, I'm seeing your video now. What a lovely mic.
Oh, you see, you can see the mic. Yeah, I got this nice white one. So everyone, thank you for having me here. Looking forward to sharing as much as I can with you. And remember, it's going to be open to questions as we go along. I don't want to wait until the end. I have a lot of information condensed in here that I wish to share. So looking forward to this.
Okay, so you are co-host. You should be able to share screen.
All right. Well, I will get the screen going. I was testing one little thing since I can't actually do some of the stuff that I want to do. But all right, perfect. This works. I need to reduce this. My computer is trying to run so many things at once. I'm sure you guys can relate to that. So how many people do we have on total?
We have 31 participants now, and I'm actually getting a few queries in my email about some person saying that they're unable to join the link. So I'm not sure what's happening with that, but
hey, technology will do what technology does.
Right, we just have to work with it as best as possible.
Right. And the good thing is that it is being recorded, so we can share the recording with people after as well, right?
Yes.
Right. Well, let me Did I get ready to share my screen?
Yeah.
Screen time. All right. How is everybody feeling today? Post in the chat. I saw a few people saying good, so please say hello. Don't be scared. Don't be a stranger.
No, they can't unmute.
Let me. All right. So I get your.
Right. Nobody can unmute until Q&A. So
right. Oh yeah. We unmute them, but you can post in the chat, right?
Yes. So we can utilize the chat throughout the presentation. Feel free to type your questions while the presentation is going on. I will be sure to have them addressed by the end of the session in our Q&A section.
Right. All right. Perfect. Sorry. I'm pulling up my presentation now, and then I'm going to share that screen, guys. During the presentation, at one point, I'm going to switch over. I need to be able to draw something for you. So that's what I was just making sure was open a while ago. But you will see it at what point. I'm going to share my outline with you so you know what to expect in the first part of this presentation. Yes, everybody popping in. Thanks. Hi, Grace. Thank you for sharing that. Joanna, Michael, Kelly, Ivor, Paula, and Puerto. Amen. Thank you, guys. All right. Let me remove the chat window and now share the screen. My presentation is ready, and the core thing for this is that I want to pay it forward. I've raised significant capital in my life. We've made some investments. I've lost more money as well. So I want you to not have the same pain that I have and get you prepared for whatever it is that you're working on, whether you're raising capital or you're trying to start your own business or you want to become an investor. So let us begin. I believe that these are going to be the most important things for us. You should be able to see the outline. So yes, so I'm sharing now. You guys should be seeing the presentation. Are you seeing it now, Ashley?
It says that you have started to share screen, but I'm not seeing any info pop up just yet.
All right, so it should be.
Okay, yeah, it's here now. Seeing that now.
So you see it now, perfect. So the outline is that we're going to talk one about role model, the right mindset, developing a framework, what is compound effort, and then legacy. Those are the first things that I think that every single person needs to be thinking about from an entrepreneurship standpoint. And you're going to understand why and how that ties in to the actual launching of a business or growing your business, especially when it comes to raising capital, whether that's debt or you want to raise equity capital. So my role model, as most people know by now, is Michael Leachin. Right? Mike has a very straightforward approach to it. He says that number one, you need to find a role model. Number two, you need to get the recipe. And number three is that don't change the recipe. You're only allowed to change the recipe when you exceed your role model. His role model was Warren Buffett. He's obviously gotten that recipe after studying him for years and then implemented it, and he's not changing it. Whatever it is that you're planning to start, you should have a role model for yourself. They don't have to be in the same industry, but you still need a role model for the kind of business person you want to be. It is easier to find a role model in your industry. They could be in a different country, but it is easier to understand what was the path they had to take. As you know, when you're cooking, you don't copy a recipe, right? You're going to be able to add some unique things to that recipe. You can spice it up. You can customize it, make it your own. So a little bit of flair, but there's still a basic set of ingredients. So don't think that you're going to take a recipe from 1960 and apply it to 2020. It's not copy and paste, right? Technology has changed. You might not be, a white guy like Warren Buffett, so you can't just copy and paste. But there are fundamental truths that will apply. So find that role model, get that recipe, and you get the recipe by reading everything about them. You read articles about them, read books about them, read books they have written, read interviews with them, and then watch every video you can find. But they share their secrets all the time. The second thing is that you have to have the right mindset. If you're going to be doing anything with money, you need to have the right mindset when it comes to capital. So you have to have the right mindset to be an entrepreneur. It is very hard. This is not 9 to 5 and super safe. So here's some true or false questions you can answer in the chat. Number one is that the Caribbean is a risky place to start a business or to invest. And that is a perception that a lot of people have. You can post in the chat if you think that's true or false, and then I'm going to move on.
Simone says false. Chris says false.
So it's false, right? So I like seeing so many people saying false. The perception is that it's risky. The reality is that there have been a lot of businesses created in the Caribbean that are successful. There have been a lot of wealth created by people in the Caribbean. So it is false that the Caribbean is risky in terms of to start a business or to invest. There's opportunity. There's risk everywhere. It's not super special, right? This is what Mike would say. Wealth is created by investing in regions that are transitioning from inefficiency to efficiency. Right? If you want to start your business in somewhere that's already perfect, then you pay for perfection. So it is even better to invest in the Caribbean and start. As we know, we have some inefficiencies, and your job is to build a better mousetrap in most cases. You will help to solve those inefficient problems and make things more efficient. True or false again, failure is bad. So this one can be a cultural issue, right? Is failure bad? So I would say, let's ask. Does anybody in here, you can type it in the chat, does anybody know what WD-40 stands for? This actually means something. That name means something. It's not just a made-up word or a made-up, it actually means something. So has anybody...
But I won't answer.
You know, yeah, you're not allowed to answer. Sure. Well, so for those of you who don't know, WD-40 stands for Water Displacement 40th Formula. They failed 39 times trying to create this product. 39 times. Most of us fail once and we give up. We fail 2 times, we're definitely giving up. We're not going 39 times, but this person who invented WD-40 took 40 chances and finally launched it, and all of us know what WD-40 is. So failure is not bad. Failure is a learning experience. So you need to give yourself permission to fail. That's the first thing to have the right mindset. Give yourself permission to fail. This is what Thomas Edison said, right? I haven't failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that don't work, right? It's claimed that he tried to invent the light bulb and he failed 10,000 times. That is the attitude that you need to take, provided you're actually analyzing why you failed. If you don't learn from failure, then it's useless. You have to learn from that failure. So it's false. Failure is the best teacher. Failure is the best teacher because you're going to learn about what you did wrong. In fact, if you only are ever successful, it creates hubris, and you have this ego where you now think you are the reason you've been successful, and it could turn out that you just happen to be lucky. It just happened to be right place or right time or right team, not you. So failure is the best teacher, and it keeps you humble. True or false again, entrepreneurs love to take risks. We've all heard that one, that entrepreneurs are risk takers. It is false. Entrepreneurs take calculated risk, and the same thing is how investors work. It is about calculated risk, and you have to figure out using a framework what to calculate those risks. So calculated risk. You don't just take risk. Please don't just jump off the bridge not knowing how to swim and assume that you learn to swim while you're in the water. That's not a calculated risk. That's a very bad risk. So this is what Mike would say, that you need 3 specific things in order to be successful. So if you're going to launch your business, number 1, you need a framework. This is a decision-making framework that's going to help guide what you do. Number 2, you need control of emotions. You don't want to make decisions based on emotions, right? You're upset or you're happy, you get hyped for the idea. That's not how you make decisions. You need to revert to your framework to control the emotions and be consistent. And then lastly, you need access, right? You need access to good ideas. You need access to good people. You need access to capital. Otherwise, the ideas are worth nothing. This is why you can't patent an idea, because it is worth nothing. You have to execute on that idea. That is what you can patent. So remember, framework, control of emotions, and then you need access. I'm going to talk about framework I use. I am not saying that you should duplicate mine, but this at least gives you an idea of what a framework could look like and how I use it. So it starts with Mike's principles of wealth creation. If you think of any wealthy person who's created wealth, not inherited it, created wealth, and you're not allowed to think of Mike, so think of somebody right now, do not write down a name, don't tell us who it is. That person owned a few businesses, usually one. And in most cases, it was private. So they had one, they were focused. Number two, it was domiciled in a strong long-term growth industry. Number three, they understand the environment that this business is operating in. They understand how it makes money. Number four and number five is that they were prudent managers of other people's money, OPM, and other people's money includes debt, money you borrow. It includes customers' money, they pay you, that's their money, or investors' money, right? And then finally, they held for the long term. If you research the wealthiest people, that's what it has been, five. Right? They don't have multiple streams of income when they were starting. They started with one business and they grew it. Later on, to maintain their wealth, to preserve wealth, they did the multiple streams of income. But they didn't have side hustles. They focused on one business and scaled that one business. So this is the framework I use. I start with a filter, right? If you're going to start a business, number one, is it domiciled in a strong long-term growth industry? That's the first question you should be asking yourself. Second question should be, do I understand the industry? You need to be able to say yes to that before you start that business. I need to understand the industry. And then lastly, are there inefficiencies? If there are no inefficiencies, then you can't create value. There has to be some way that you are going to be better, faster, or cheaper, right? So there has to be inefficiencies. So you start with that as a filter, and then I have a framework that I didn't go into for all our decisions. So my framework has 6 things. I call it an opportunity analysis framework, right? Because you're always going to be coming up with ideas. You go to bed, you dream about an idea, you wake up and think, man, that sounds like a good idea. You have a friend who brings an idea to you. Oh, that sounds interesting. How do I decide what to participate in? So I have 6. 2 are going to be the most important. But number 1 is going to be risk. And I'm ranking all of these low, medium, and high. So what's the risk for this opportunity that I'm looking at? Is it low, medium, or high risk? And this is, I can't ever predict 100%, but based on my research, I can estimate what the risk is. I want to look at the effort and time required from me. Not everybody else. What is my time and effort that's required? Is it low, medium, or high? I want to look at potential payoff for this business. Is it low, medium, or high? Obviously, I don't want to put time and effort into a low potential payoff opportunity. Fourth, I want to look at the capital that is required to execute this. Is it low, medium, or high capital, right? If I want to go and build a new highway in Jamaica, that's going to be high capital. I need to think twice about that. The last 2 for me, though, are the most important. I was going to say single most important. They're the most important. Number 1 is outcome control. How much control do I have in having a positive outcome for this business, right? Is it somebody else's business and I'm now a partner, or did I start it? Do I have control or not? So that's 1. And then secondly is the enjoyment. Do I have low, medium, or high enjoyment for the people I'm working with and this project that I'm working on? Is it a problem I enjoy solving? The reason this is important is that if you don't enjoy the people you work with, you're not going to put in the effort and you're not going to stay there when things get hard. Also, if you don't enjoy solving this problem, when you hit that inevitable pothole or you might drop in a ditch, you are going to give up. You have to enjoy what you're working on, because it's roughly take you 10 years of your life. Are you willing to sacrifice 10 years of your life waking up every single day working on this idea? If you're not willing to do that, in my opinion, you shouldn't be wasting the time doing it then. So that's my opportunity analysis framework. Here's an actual example. So this is opportunity A. I'm going to rank it against another opportunity, right? I don't want to do 5 opportunities. I need to focus. So opportunity A requires high effort, has medium risk, low capital, easy to start. I have high control. I probably started it. There's a medium payoff based on my calculations. And of course, medium is a relative number to people. Numbers are relative, but low enjoyment. Opportunity B comes along now. Medium effort, low risk, needs a bit more capital though, still have high control, has a higher payoff, is a high payoff, and I really enjoy it. If I'm going to rank these 2 opportunities against each other, obviously I'm going to take opportunity B. That's how I would look at it. So that's my framework to decide if I want to start this business or get involved in this business. So I highly recommend you take some time to figure out your own framework. It will help you to be far more efficient in how you deploy your time. Now to talk about compound effort. I use Michael Jordan specifically because he was cut from his high school team. Let's always remember that. The greatest basketball player in history was cut from his basketball team. And so Michael says this famous one: champions do not become champions when they win an event, but in the hours, weeks, and months and years they spend preparing for it. Some of us have seen posts on Instagram about Usain Bolt, about how much money he made versus the number of seconds he ran. And then it points out how many years he trained in order to perform during those seconds. So Michael Jordan hits it spot on. You have to prepare. It's going to take years. Most people will never see what you put in on the back end. They only see the success. You better realize that it's going to take a lot of work, and you need to start preparing. And it's no different from sports. It's no different from playing a musical instrument. If you want to get good, one, you need a teacher, you need to be coached, and you need to be coachable. And then number two, you need to put in the work. There's no substitute for effort. So I want to go through what compound effort is. So now I'm going to try this. I'm going to try and stop sharing this one and switch over to the other screen. And please, I really, really hope this works. So we're switching over now. Ashley, tell me when you see the screen. You see the screen, Ashley? The effort and time?
I'm talking with my mic muted. Yes, I'm seeing the screen. I'm seeing it.
You see the screen, guys. So imagine that we have this graph, right? Effort on the y-axis, time on the x-axis. So we want to know, think about how success is looked at. Most people think that success is just up and to the right. This is me drawing with a mouse, guys, so don't laugh at me, right? This is me drawing, but up and to the right. We think that over time, as long as we put out effort, we're going to be successful. The reality, though, of success is that it's exponential. It takes time to get this done, right? It takes time. It's not automatic. So this is what happens to most of us. Most of us start working on this thing. We tell our friends, we tell our family members, we even tell ourselves we're going to be successful. And after a few years, let's say this is the point here, we feel that we should be here, right? We put out this much effort. And so we feel that we should be at this point. In reality, we are down here. And your mom, your dad, your brother, your sister, somebody, your friend, boy, you're working at this thing for 2 years in a man. How come you're not up there and so successful? So your perception is to be up here, but your reality, that's horrible, guys. I cannot draw a bracket using a mouse. I am so sorry. I don't know how to undo it. So up here is your perception, but down here is the reality. What is the difference between perception and reality? This difference is called frustration, right here. That's what we call frustration. Everybody get frustrated. You feel like you're banging your head against a wall. But you know what you do? You push through. We push through that frustration. That's what most of us do. The first time, we push through. Another year or so passed, more time has passed. So we know at this point, we are convinced that with this amount of effort, our brain is still telling us we should be all the way up here for success. You know what? You're really down here. The difference between where you think you should be and where you really are is more frustration. That's what that is, more frustration. And you know what most people do at that point? Most people, what they do? They give up. And they start right back over. So what happens is that you're going to keep doing this during your life, and eventually you're going to be 65 years old, and you look back and say, man, I kept starting over. Where did the time go? You need to find a way to push through that frustration. Remind yourself that effort is going to compound over time. It is an exponential curve. So don't worry about the perception of where you think you're going to be. The reality is that it's going to take time to scale. So that is what the compound effort is. The catch of the reverse of this though is that if you turn around and you were doing the wrong thing for 5 years, 4 years. I can't rub this out, guys. It's gonna take a while. Let me get it though. So if you're doing the wrong thing for a little bit, you don't see negative results because it's exponential going opposite direction, going down. Oh, I didn't get in trouble. So you do some more things. Oh, I didn't get in trouble. And so you keep going, and then all of a sudden you end up in jail. So you need to be careful that you're working on the right thing, that you're compounding your effort on the right thing. So now we're going to switch back to the actual presentation.
There was a question in the chat from Sarah asking if effort increases over time or decreases.
So the nice thing, I will be honest. So let me start sharing the screen. So effort actually decreases over time because they get smarter, right? And then you get more people to help you. So your effort actually decreases over time, but you also get smarter. So let's think about it from a sports analogy or music. If you learn how to play the violin, or you learn how to play football and become a really good, free kick taker, your effort required to be a great free kick taker becomes less because you've become an expert, you become better. So effort actually decreases over time, and every ounce of effort now gets you 10 times the result because you've gotten smarter. But it takes time. It takes, if you read Malcolm Gladwell's Outliers, he's going to say that it's 10,000 hours of practice. However long it takes to do that, it will take 10,000 hours of practice. So if you build a website today for the first time, it might take you weeks. When you're doing it 10 years later, it might take you a day or less to build a website. So yes, effort will decrease over time, but you'll get better results. So it's the same way that you invest money. So love that question, Sarah. Thank you. Let me bring back up the presentation and get into that. That was an excellent, excellent question. So you guys are seeing it. I'm going to shrink this a little so I can actually see some of the questions that pop up. Now I can see. Perfect. So, and we're back on the screen. You're seeing the screen right now, right? You're seeing the Warren Buffett comment, the quote saying, if you don't look to jump over 7-foot bars, well, he doesn't look to jump over 7-foot bars. He looks around for 1-foot bars that he can step over. A lot of people look for the hardest thing to do, the biggest idea, the most expensive thing, instead of stopping to decide what's the easiest thing I can start and then build into something that is harder, right? Have this big, hairy, audacious goal, but break it down into those small 1-foot bars and build over time. Just please consider that. So legacy, this one is important to me. This is something that Mike has reinforced and reiterated to me. What do I want for my legacy? What do I want to be known for 100 years from now? And this could be known just in your family. You could think bigger and you want to be known in your town, in your country, globally. But think about your legacy when you're running this business or starting this business or investing in the business. What do I want my legacy to be? And that's going to help you act properly, right? It's going to ensure you do things right. So I leverage, I send you this one. This is Steve Jobs. I think this is really important about here's to the crazy ones, the misfits, the rebels, the troublemakers, the round pegs in the square holes, the ones who see things differently. They're not fond of rules. You can quote them, disagree with them, glorify or vilify them, but the only thing you can't do is ignore them because they change things. And while some may see them as the crazy ones, we see genius, because the ones who are crazy enough to think that they can change the world are the ones who do. So there's nothing wrong if somebody says that you're crazy. That's actually a good thing. That's a good thing. That's how I look at it. So now we're going to get into how you build this company to last, and then how you actually get investors. What do investors look for? How do you get capital? I think it's important to understand that as much as you see press talking about companies raising money in America, less than 3% of businesses ever raise money from outside investors in the US. So it is actually extremely rare. In most cases, small and medium-sized businesses have been grown under their power, right? They've raised capital from debt, they've raised from friends and family, they've just grown organically. Most don't raise money. So don't assume that you have to get money from an investor to scale. So how do you build your company to last? The topics that are going to be most important are, number one, your business model, right? Number two is your customer avatar and the customer journey. market size calc wrong. We're going to talk about KLT, know, like, trust, profit first, and then OKRs and KPIs. These are objectives and key results, and then the key performance indicators to track those key results. So I was taught 6 P's. We've heard about the 4 P's, the 5 P's. My marketing teacher in our MBA said, hey, no, there's a P that's important. So number one, you need to define the problem. So I need to have a problem that the business solves. We need to have a product that we're going to be selling to solve that problem, right? A service is still a product. We need to know the people we are selling to. We need to know the place where we're going to distribute this. We need to have a price that we're going to sell it at. And then we need to know where we're going to promote it. But all of those things need to add up to profit, right? I have a marketing degree. I did international business and marketing. A lot of marketers forget about the profit part. All of that stuff that you do needs to add up to profit. So remember, you're trying to create a profitable business, not a hobby. I think this quote from Michael Wolff is critical. I've met too many people who want to start a business because they don't want to work for anybody. That's not a sufficient reason to start a business, right? The best companies are not started by people who want to be an entrepreneur. They are started by people who are knowledgeable and passionate about a very specific problem, feel they can solve it, and then get busy solving it. So it has to be a problem that you are passionate about. If you're only doing it for the money, you remember it's an exponential growth curve. So in year 2, you're not going to be where you are. You're not going to be making the money in most cases that you expected. Therefore, you're probably going to give up. You need to be doing it for more than the money. So think about legacy. Why am I doing it? Mike McCullough, it's a good friend of mine that wrote Profit First, Toilet Paper Entrepreneur, and Pumpkin Plan, talks about focus. And we say focus, focus, focus. Nothing beats focus. He came up with the idea for the book when he decided to figure out how do these farmers in the United States who win these giant pumpkin events, how the hell they grow these pumpkins? Because it's not normal to see a pumpkin that big. And so Mike interviewed them, and it turned out what they said is that they plant the same amount of seeds as all the other pumpkin farmers. And then what they do as these vines start to ripen and you start to see small pumpkins on there, they look at where the biggest pumpkins are. And they go and they cut the vines to all the other small pumpkins. They remove them because those things are taking the nutrients that are needed for the bigger pumpkins. So you see something else is growing, don't spread yourself too thin, right? The nutrients are your money and your time. Don't spread it so thin. Concentrate. And every single week they would go in and look at the pumpkins that are doing the best, and then they would cut the vines to the smallest pumpkins. And that way the nutrients are getting channeled into just the best performers. And eventually they're left with one big pumpkin. You need to have a pumpkin plan for your business. You could start with a few things, but then you need to narrow your focus. We've heard about the Pareto principle, right? That 80-20 rule. 80% of your profits probably coming from 20% of the actual business. Focus, right? Same thing with your time. So focus, focus, focus. Do not throw 100 things on the wall and see which one stick. Please, please, please don't do that. If you do that, quickly start cutting vines and channeling the nutrients to the ones that are doing the best. So that's what you need to do. On the customer side, especially investors want to see that you do this. Define your target market at a granular level. It is far better to go deep than go wide. So what I expect you to say is here's my customer avatar. My yoga pants that I'm going to be selling are going to be sold to women who are age 35, who finished with a bachelor's degree, have 2 children, are married, and love Grace Kennedy sausages. Like, you need to get hyper specific. You should be able to walk into a store and know exactly who your customers are. You go to the plaza and you can immediately say, that's my customer, that's not my customer. Start small and then you can scale out, right? You look at, that's how car companies, everybody started with a narrow target market, then they scaled outwards. Start very narrow. Don't define by saying I'm selling to people 18 to 35 and they're all, everybody, males and females, 18 to 35 in Jamaica. That's way too broad of a market. Narrow your target market. Right? This one now is really interesting. I've always heard people say, oh man, if I just get 1% of XYZ market, this is how much money I'm going to make. It doesn't work that way, right? You have to start from the ground up. So think about it this way. People need to know you, then they need to trust you, and then they need to like you. to buy from you. They're handing over their hard-earned money. In most cases, what we do is that we focus on trying to get people to know us, right? We're going to open a website, we're going to run a radio ad, you're going to run a TV ad, you're going to get on social media. They're just knowing you. Do more to get them to trust you, right? A subset of who knows you will trust you. A subset of who trusts you eventually likes you and likes your product and buys from you. What most people do after that, though, is that they focus on only one thing. They focus on, let's get more people to like us, right? I got 100 people to know me, 50 trust me, 20 like me. Let me try and go from 20 liking me to 30 liking me out of the same 100. You didn't expand your pie, just the same 100. Or in most cases, people say, well, if 100 know me and I converted 20% of them, 20 of them turn into customers, what I need to do is get 1,000 people to know me and I'll just grow it tenfold. They expect the percentage to stay the same. 20% will convert. So 200 people out of the 1,000 will become customers. I call that, that's a tyranny of the or, as Jim Collins would say. What you actually want is to use and. You want to embrace and. What if I could increase the number of people who know me and increase the percentage who like me? So you can grow to that 1,000, but you can go from a 20% conversion to a 30% conversion. So focus on both. So ensure people know you, then get them to trust you, then get them to like you. That's how they part with their cash and go from there. Measure what matters. This is the title of a book I really love. This is what they used to build Intel. This is what they used to build Google. And they're called objectives and key results. And then you use KPIs, key performance indicators, to track. So you're limited to usually 3 or 4 objectives, whether it's quarterly or yearly. What is the objective I would like to accomplish within a certain amount of time? Okay, what are the key results that would indicate that I've completed the objective? So if the objective, for example, is I want to run a 5K, I want to finish a 5K race. Great. What is the key result? Well, I need to have entered the 5K, right? I needed to have actually finished the 5K. I have a time. Now I have a result that completes that objective. Well, what are the key performance indicators to indicate, to show that I'm making progress? Because now you can track your progress on it. Well, I need to actually sign up. I need to find a 5K. I need to sign up for the 5K. I need to train for the 5K. Then I need to enter the 5K. Then I need to actually finish. I need to do 1 kilometer, 2 kilometers, 3, 4, 5. That is what you need to do in the business. What are the objectives that are required for me to get from point A to the next point? Right? Because you're building blocks. So OKRs are really, really interesting. You can just Google OKRs. They have a whole website for it. But it works brilliantly for you to break things into pieces. Right? We've heard that story about how does a man eat an elephant? 1 bite at a time. Break down large problems into smaller problems and then solve them one at a time. Now, profit first is an interesting one. This might hurt your head. Most accountants don't actually like this, but this is what we're taught. Revenue minus profit equal expenses. But that's not what it is, right? It's normally revenue minus expenses equal profit. If you look at this, people say that's wrong, right? I generate money, I bring in $1,000. I spend money, that's expenses. What is left over is profit. Well, that's the wrong way to think about it. You can decide from day one, how much profit would I like to generate? What's my profit margin going to be? And that's going to determine what price you need to sell the product at. So if my revenue is $1,000 and I've set my profit at 5%, it means I'm going to set aside that $50 at that point. You put it into a different account. I'm only allowed to spend what's left. Think about this. This is how we're told to budget in our personal life. You're told that you should spend less than you earn. So if you earned $10,000 this year in US dollars, so you earn 10,000 US dollars, for you to end up saving, they would tell you, well, spend less than that. Spend 70% of it, right? You should have live on the 70%, save the other 30. So you'd have put aside $3,000 every month as you got your paycheck. You would simply set aside 30% of the paycheck and only live on the 70. You're only allowed to have expenses equal to 70%. Why aren't we taught to do that in business? If you are forced to live on that 70% within a business, you're going to do so much better. But it also forces you to price correctly. So yes, it sounds like it correlates with bootstrap. So you can do this at scale. You don't have to do it only when you bootstrap it. You can start to do it at scale. But yes, it helps you to get going. Bootstrap sometimes can use a negative term. There's nothing wrong with bootstrapping. Yeah, it gets you to keep more equity in the business for longer. And that's what you're doing. You are here to build generational wealth. We're not here to just build it and give it away to somebody else. Market size again, it's never just get 1% of X. So I'm going to show you what is the correct way to think about market size. And this is what it's called. So you want to look at 3 things. Any investor in the US and smart investors in Jamaica are going to expect this. What is the total addressable market? So hey, the market for diapers in Jamaica is X. Well, that's a number. You might say it's 100 million Jamaican dollars as a market for diapers. Great. You're not getting all the diapers. Right? Diapers are adult and kids. So you're not getting all of them. What's the serviceable addressable market? Who can you actually get to? So you're only doing, it might be adult diapers, right? That's what you might be doing. So I'm going to do adult diapers in Jamaica. So that market is a bit smaller than the 100 million. You still cannot get 100% of that market though. It is impossible for you to get 100% of a market. So what you need to say is, what is a serviceable, obtainable market? I am going after 10% or 20% of that market. You think of it just like Windows and desktops. Even Windows doesn't have 100% market share. So you should be focusing on serviceable, obtainable market. What's Ashley telling me? 15 minutes. We need longer than that, Ashley. This is the most important slide you'll ever see in your life for business. I'm going to tell you that one. This is the single most important one. Innovators, early adopters, early majority, late majority, and laggards. This is the same way when you're approaching investors. The first people you get in are the easiest. They're the innovators. The first people who buy your product are the easiest ones to get. They're your innovators. The next people that come in are your early adopters. They get in. Those are your angel investors and so on. Those are the second set of customers. And then you have this chasm. There's a giant hole, and most companies die in that hole because they don't know how to get to an early majority. You need to always think about this. When you're talking to a potential investor, what stage do they invest at? They might be early, or they might tell you, boy, I need somebody else to put in. Then you know in your head not to keep talking to them because you still need innovators and early adopters. It's the same way with your product or service. Not everybody is going to actually come in early. In fact, the majority of people are not going to come in early. So you're going to get a lot of no's. So out of 100, roughly you're going to get 15% saying yes, 15 people, right? That means you're going to get 85 no's for every 100 people that you talk to. Once you understand that in your brain, you don't worry about getting no's. When you get a no, it actually feels good because you're one no closer to a yes. 100 no's, 100 people, 85 no's, 15 yeses. That is how you have to think about it. Don't get down when you get that no. One step closer. That's how you have to think about it. But that's what this graph is to remind you about. There are 6 ways to grow after you start the business. Right? It's really just simple. You have 3 things you can do. You have your product, you have people, and you have the margin. This is how. So you are only allowed to pick one thing. Screenshot this one, please. You're only allowed to pick one thing from each of these columns. So you can either have the same product, an improved product, or a new product, right? You can sell to the same people, or you can sell to new people. You can sell at the same price, or you can sell at higher margins, same margin or higher margins. So an example is that going forward, I could have the same product, I could then sell it to new people, and I could sell it at higher margins, and I grow the business. So this is when you want to grow. Are you started the business? You need to scale. Are you selling the same product to the same people at the same margin? Well, you could keep doing that, but there are other options. But you can't do all of the above, right? You don't want to be doing the same product and a new product to the same people and new people and then mess up your margins. You cannot spread yourself too thin, right? 80% of the time, pick one from each column, and then that's how you can start growing the business. And so scaling of the business is crucial. You need to build a team. You need to get them on board, which you use vesting of the shares. And what vesting means, and you will have to make sure you watch some videos on YouTube for this one. How do I get a co-founder, right? You don't just give up 20% of the company to them. What you do is say, all right, well, it's going to be a 4-year vesting schedule. And what that means is that after the first year of working for me, you get the first quarter of the shares I promise you. So if I promise you 20% of the business to join me, you have 12 months before you get the first 5%. Right? That's a quarter. After that, every single month for the remaining 3 years, your shares vest pro rata. So whatever the percentage would be, those shares vest each month. This protects you because if they talk a great game, which a lot of people can do that, and they come into the business and get 20%, and then you have to fire them in 9 months or fire them in 3 months because they're not performing, you've lost 20% of the business. So vesting is going to be crucial to bringing people in a business. And you don't want them there for less than 12 months and getting anything. They need to be there for at least 12 months. This is standard for any investor going to put in capital. And in fact, they'll require you, the founder, have to have vesting as well, because you might end up leaving the company because you don't like it. So vesting typically is a 4-year schedule. You don't get anything for the first 12 months, and then you hit this cliff, you get the first quarter, and then every month after that, you get the remainder over 3 years. And that's how you can help to attract outside capital. So I'm going to leave you with some fundraising tips now. This is number one, you need to know your target market, right? Who are you raising money from? They're all different, friends and family. And we joke that it's a 3 F's. It's friends, family, and fools that you raise money from first. Please don't ever call them that. I've actually lost money from somebody. They committed capital to me, committed about 50K. I did a video after that that explained that the first people to put in money are friends, family, and fools. And so the guy said to me, well, I'm not your family. I just met you, so I don't consider myself your friend. So I must be a fool. So I'm not investing with you, David. so that was funny to me, right? Angel investors are the second that you go after. Venture capital and private equity are 2 different kinds. So each of them requires a different approach. Know who your target market is. Yeah, man, hi Tabika, big up the Mullins people. Of course, all right. Number one, you need to learn each type of investor group is approached differently. So you need to use certain terms, certain deal structure. So decide who you're going after first. Then you need to understand what their terms they use and what's the deal structure, right? Proven is going to be different. They're private equity versus if you went to Sequoia Capital here in the US, which is a venture capital firm. So here are some general rules though to help you. Number one, we have 3 rules. Investors don't bet on great ideas. We don't care. Literally, we don't care how great the ideas. We bet on viable business models with proven traction. They care about traction. Traction doesn't mean you're profitable. Traction could mean that you built a page that says, here's a problem we're going to solve. Submit your email address so you can know when it launches. And then you come to the investor and say, I have 1,000 people signed up in 1 month for my thing. Now I need money to build it. That actually is traction. So that's possible. But viable business models with proven traction. The second one, I love that. From your experience, what's that question? I can't read the whole question. Or actually, yeah.
Let me go ahead and help you there, David. It says, from your experience, what are the top 5 best practices and or sources to acquire startup capital or seed funding for business startups in Jamaica?
Boy, Jamaica rough, you know. I'm going to tell you honestly, raising seed capital in Jamaica is next to impossible because we have no seed stage funds, and most of the investors in Jamaica didn't build the businesses on their own. They inherited those businesses. So they invest more from a private equity standpoint. You literally would have to go and have traction, grow that business, go through an accelerator like the Branson Center or 10 Habitat in Barbados, and then the investors would look at you. But it's extremely hard to actually raise startup capital from outside investors in the Caribbean, much harder than the US. So my advice is actually focus on profit first and building the business. We will have an impact fund soon that does seed stage investing. So please reach out, stay in touch, and we will be true seed stage investors and help people scale those companies. But right now, my experience has been, unless you know the person, you've built a relationship over time, they now trust your business model, you have a background that they feel ties in with the market. So it's called founder market fit. And you get a warm introduction, it's extremely rare for you to raise money. Right? We've raised money in Jamaica, Barbados, Germany, and the United States. The Barbados was actually the easiest. The US was the second easiest. Germany was third. Jamaica was the hardest. And I'm a Jamaican who worked in Jamaica. So that one is rough. And we were able to raise money in Jamaica partly because of the introductions we got and the fact that I used to work at Jamaica National in finance, and we're doing finance related things. So That one is a very hard one. You have to, yeah, Barbados was the easiest. We did get an introduction, but Barbados investors are just very, very different. They're far more sophisticated than Jamaican investors in based on my experience. They don't ask the same amount of questions. They're not as risk averse as Jamaican investors. So yes, Barbados for us worked out easier. It was partly because of the introduction we also got, but I mean, we flew into Barbados the Monday, we had the meeting the Tuesday, we played tennis on the Thursday, and by the following Tuesday they wired the money. And we raised way more money, right? We raised last time I did a raise, we raised 50K out of Jamaica, and we raised 350K out of Barbados. So for a total of $770,000 raised. The balance came from the US. But it was literally, it took me 9 months to raise the money from Jamaica, including that investor flying from Jamaica to sit with our lawyer in Orlando in their law firm to meet the lawyer. Barbados didn't care. The man was like, literally, we went to the Royal Yacht Club the Tuesday, we hung out, we had lunch, we talked, we made the pitch. Wednesday, we actually hung out, we went to the beach, we didn't meet. Thursday, we played tennis. I made sure I lost. I'm not going to try and whop the guys. And then the following Tuesday, 50,000 was wired. Then a check for 100K was mailed to us. Then another 50K was wired. So we moved. They moved quick. Very different. So remember, investors don't just bet on viable business models and proven traction. They primarily bet on the founder. So this is a key one a lot of founders misunderstand. They're betting on you. They bet on the jockey, not the horse. Right? When you turn around and say, hey, you know what? This looks interesting. This guy named Biz Stone and Dorsey are doing this website called Audio. You invested in them. Audio failed, right? Audio failed completely, and they pivoted and used the internal messaging service and launched what became Twitter. So the investors bet on Jack and bet on Biz that whatever they do, even if they pivot, these guys are going to stick to it and make something happen. Jamaican investors tend to expect you to execute on that one thing. They're not betting on the jockey, they're betting on the horse. That's the fundamental problem. The horse doesn't matter. I need to believe that you, the jockey, are going to be able to figure out a horse. I'm going to let you figure it out. Jamaicans like to let you figure it out, right? Not on their dime, at least. The same thing happened with Instagram, right? Bourbon was what was founded by Kevin Systrom and his business partner. So this had to do with bars. Bourbon failed, but the photo sharing part of Bourbon was really good. So they pivoted and created Instagram. And then 6 months later, Instagram was acquired, as we know, for an absurd amount of money, $1 billion by Facebook. So bet on the jockey, not the horse. You need to show people that you are the kind of jockey to bet on. You are the kind of founder to bet on. So investors don't want to pay for you to figure it out, right? You need to have figured out some of it, not the start. So it's rare to come and say, I have an idea, give me money to start the idea. Most investors will just look at you and say, you're crazy. Go start something. Build a minimum viable product to get one customer, get one order. Prove something to me before they part with their cash. So in most cases, investors don't want to pay for you to figure it out. So here.
One quick question, David. There I can jump in. So I think one of the biggest issues for persons starting businesses is to deal with the failure. What would you say was your biggest failure that you had? What are the lessons you learned and what kept you going?
Yeah, man. So the biggest one, I have to pick one. But so we raised $770,000 between friends, family, and then some investors we didn't know. And that's Barbados, Jamaica, US. And a year and a half later, the business entirely failed. We lost every single dollar of those investors' money because we bought a business. We were buying a profitable existing business. We did our due diligence. And the people we bought it from who stayed on, one of them turns out they were committing fraud. So they had hidden a potential lawsuit from us. So after we bought the business, it comes out in the papers that this private equity firm just bought it. Of course, the person shows up and says, hey, somebody has money. I'm going to sue them. And so we ended up having to fold that business. So, my electricity literally was cut off, right? In the middle of Christmas, my wife and I had to huddle around our 1-year-old baby to keep the baby warm that night. And the next day I told my parents what happened. And so they provided some money to help us get going. We went on food stamps for a month to get some money. And so I was very depressed. And it was talking to a few people and watching the videos of, the failures that Michael Leachin went through, and Warren Buffett has lost capital. Most successful people have been in a ditch. And so, The one that really hit me though was Steven Schwartzman, who founded Blackstone, and just reading how they launched and then they nearly collapsed. Right. I also read Principles by Ray Dalio, heard his story, and so when I read his stuff, it's like this guy now runs the largest hedge fund in the world, right? And at one point, his hedge fund failed to the point where he had to release all his staff, and his father had to give him the money to pay rent as a grown man, older than I was. And so that reminded me that I should not give up, because a lot of the successful people I look up to, my role models, all fail at some point, like horrible failure. Right? I bought the Walter Isaacson's book about Steve Jobs and listened to that audiobook as well. And that reminded me how much failure Steve Jobs went through. He failed first, and then he launched Apple. His first company failed. Then he launched Apple. You're flying high, you're a multimillionaire in public, and then you get fired from your own company. And eventually you come back. And that kept me going, especially Steve Jobs. Which is why I have a picture of him here in my little office space. When you realize that, failure can either kill you or it can allow you to come back better, but it's not really fatal. So that's what it was. Understanding that failure is part of the process allowed me to keep going and figure out what to do next. Number one, get back to zero, because I had a ton of debt, right? My car was repossessed. I had a nice little Toyota Prius. It was repossessed. Like, I've been through hell. But knowing that these guys went through worse than me, right? My kids still love me. My wife still love me. My parents not killing me. The people who matter are still here in my life. The people who are upset with me are no longer in my life because they weren't there to support me, right? The mental health side of it. They actually contributed to the depression. So you get rid of them, get that supportive network, and then you have that role model. So that's what kept me going. And then reminding myself of why am I trying to do what I'm doing? I want to create wealth for Black people. I need to keep going because that problem is not yet solved, and I believe I have a way to solve it. So the mission was more important to me than wallowing in self-pity. And I had people that said, you're not sitting in the house, let me take you to the movies, right? So I had friends who took me to the movies because I couldn't afford to go. So they would carry me to the movies and they would pay for it. Find those kinds of people around you. So that's how I managed to overcome that one, right? That for me is the single biggest failure to this point, and I don't intend to repeat that one. I will be very honest. So the most important thing in business is to stay in the game, right? You can't win the game of business, but you need to stay in the game. So keep playing. Like, find a way to stay in the game. You get knocked out, get back in. This business can fail, I can come back. I can learn from it, understand the mistakes that I made. So I hope that answered the question for you guys. I know we have a limited amount of time, so keep asking questions. I want to leave some key questions you need to be asking when you approach an investor, because investors really want to know that you have done your own research before coming to them, because they're seeing 100 deals for the year. They're probably going to do 3 at most. So don't waste their time and don't waste your time. So here are the questions. Number 1, are they interested in this segment that you are in, right? People tend to invest based on industry. So I will invest in a restaurant, for example. So just don't want to come to me, right? Do they invest in this geography? Just because they have money and they invest in this segment does not mean they want to invest in this area, this geography. Third, and critical, do they invest at my current stage? What stage do they invest at? Does it have to be profitable? Do you have to have traction? Can it just be seed stage? What stage do they invest in? Right? This fourth one, though, is the one that I've realized that most founders have to be taught this. We don't know this one. Investors taught me this one. When I never forgot, I went to someone and said, yeah, man, 200K to put into the business for me to scale this thing. And the person said, oh, that don't move the needle for me. I was like, excuse me? What do you mean? To me, 200,000 US dollars at that time is a lot of money. What do you mean it don't move the needle? No. I need to deploy at least $2 million, right? I have a $20 million fund. Putting $200,000 into your company, even if that doubled, would be such a tiny percentage of my fund, it don't make sense. So I want to invest at least $2 million. So you need to be able to move the needle for an investor. So understand what that looks like for them, and you'll be surprised. And then lastly, have they invested in similar businesses? It's hard to talk to somebody and explain your vision and they've never even looked at that kind of a business, right? You want people who've invested in something similar. It might not be exact, it might not be in the same industry, but it might be a product focused consumer packaged goods business. Great. They actually will be smart money. That's what you want. Right? Cash is just there. You want smart money. They can help you scale the business. They can provide ideas. In fact, they can show you here are mistakes the last one made. And this comes up when you watch Shark Tank, right? There are specific things. If you have a clothing business, you're going to be talking to Damon John. If you have a tech business, you're talking to Mark Cuban and Robert Herjavec. If you want to be selling stuff to consumers, then Lori is the boss. Like Lori is the boss. If they've invested in similar businesses, they're going to be very additive. They'll turbocharge your business. They'll grow it 10x, whereas you would only grow it 2x. So those are 5 key questions that you want to be asking. And then lastly, investors care about what is a potential market size? Do you have any traction? Are there any barriers to entry? Right? They want wide moats. Are there barriers to entry? What does your competition look like? And these are slides that you're going to need to do. Who else is in the market? Break down the use of funds. If I give you $1 million, how are you spending that $1 million to grow the business over the next 18 months? Right? They always want at least 18 months. How are you going to use that money? How much for marketing? How much for IT? How much for staffing? How much for product development? You need a clear breakdown. How much cash is required to become cash flow positive? A lot of us don't realize that cash flow positive is different from being profitable. Those two are not the same things. You can be profitable and not cash flow positive, and the business dies. Businesses don't die because they're not profitable. Businesses die because they're not cash flow positive. And the simple example is that Walmart could come to you and say, man, you've invented an amazing doll that I want to sell to these black people in my store. Let me put in an order for $1 million worth of dolls. You are now happy, but Walmart does not pay you $1 million up front. Walmart is going to pay you probably net 90. So after you send it to them, they get it. 90 days later, they're going to pay you $1 million. Well, it's going to
David, your mic just went out. We're not hearing. David. No, David. Okay. While we wait to see if David's mic is gonna come back, I would just like to tell everybody thank you for joining today. Thanks for making the time to listen to our presenter. I'm actually looking to see if David's mic is coming back. No.
Yeah, I'm back in now.
Okay.
Yeah, you have to make me think.
You came out, sorry.
Yeah, I don't know what just happened, guys. Sorry.
Yeah, did you drop?
So I will go back to the screen. I wasn't talking to myself for too long, so I don't feel too bad. So we're talking about cash required and cash flow positive. So again, you need to understand the difference between your cash flow statement and your profit and loss statement, your P&L. Please understand the difference, know your numbers. And then team and valuation, right? Some investors are not as valuation sensitive, so they're not going to say, oh, your valuation is too high. Some of them don't look at it that way. Most do look at valuation, and valuation is usually not something you set, is what the investors set. But your team is going to be crucial. One person don't make a team. One hand can't clap. One person alone is not going to cut it. Who is on your team? Who is going to be in charge of marketing? Who is in charge of sales? Who is in charge of product development or customer service or HR? Whatever it is you need to be able to either have a team in place or show that you're able to build a team. So in our case, if you only have 3 people, we're going to ask you, over the next 18 months, what are the other roles that you intend to fill out on your team? And most importantly, have you started to identify anybody? So these are going to be the most important things that an investor is going to ask. There are always others, but these are going to be the most important. If you can answer these, you're going to be in the top 5% of opportunities that they're looking at. Just want to point that out to you. So This is a famous question I was asked when I was first raising money. This landed me $100,000 investment. That was the first time I started. And they asked me, what happens if you get hit by a bus? And I was like, man, why you need to be so morbid? And they said, no, but if you're the only person in the business and you're the only one who has access to the bank accounts, you're the only one who knows what the business model is. How do I get back my money if you get hit by a bus? You need to have an answer. And that is why most people don't fund solopreneurs, solo founders. They want to see that there's a team in place and there's a plan for risk mitigation. And yes, it sounds hard to say hit by a bus, but the reason I do that is because life is unexpected. Right? I was rushed to hospital last year, on February 4th, out of the blue, didn't expect it. 30% chance of not waking up. Stuck in hospital for 10 days. My father was able to go and do a meeting with my lawyers. My dad was able to do a conference call on my behalf, right? I was stuck at home for 6 weeks, 2 weeks in bed, 6 weeks I couldn't travel. My father was able to go and fly to Jamaica and do a meeting on my behalf because I had copied him on a bunch of the emails because he's one of my investors and he knew what to follow up on. You never know what can happen to you. So think about that one. What happens if you get hit by a bus? Because smart investors are going to ask that. They care about that. So screenshot this slide. Your pitch deck has to at least have these slides, right? What's the problem? What's the solution you've come up with? What statistics exist to prove it's a growing market? What does your competition look like? Do you have any traction, even if it's just that you've collected emails? What is your go-to-market strategy? How are you actually going to reach people? Who is the team that is involved? Even if it's some consultants, and you really want to be able to put logos of companies they've worked with. What do you plan to do over the next 18 months? What's high level? What's your timeline? Break down your use of funds. I'm asking for $500,000. Here's what I'm going to do with it. And most importantly, the ask. Do not put a valuation, but tell them how much money you're asking for. You're asking for 100,000, 500,000. Put a number. End with the number. They need to know the number. So this is where I want to say. I think this is going to be crucial for you guys. I could go on and on, but I want to open it up to more questions now, especially because I'm an open book. I know we're recording it, but I'm still a fairly open book. And I don't want to keep talking unless I answer more questions, guys. I can keep going if you want.
No. Okay, what I'm going to do is I will unmute everyone. And if we can, in some orderly fashion, unmute. I'm going to give you the ability to unmute yourself. And we can ask our questions so we can have a little bit more interaction before we finish.
Right. And if you don't want to ask the question publicly, then type it to me privately.
Yes, that's
so I will stop sharing the screen now and I'll switch over to video so you guys can see me. Boom.
I'm going to share my screen so everybody can see what's up next while I unmute everyone.
So guys, don't be afraid, you know. If you don't ask questions, I'm going to pull up some more slides. Just warning you.
Okay, everyone is now free to unmute their mic and ask questions. No questions?
Good afternoon. Hello.
Good afternoon, Carlene.
Okay, I have an idea for a water filling business. I have done a little research for myself and I realized that especially now that we are having all this drought and the quality of the water is not so good, discoloration, sometimes the scent of the water, a foul odor coming from the water at times. And I realized that whereas I usually consume a lot of tap water, I've started to purchase water from the supermarkets or someone else who is running like a filling station. And I've been considering, so I did a little research myself on the capital that is needed. And I realized that I would need about approximately $3.5 million to start this filling station. We're talking about the reverse osmosis machine and all of that. So I was thinking, how would I go about getting my plan done and acquiring some capital? Any ideas?
You're muted. You're muted, David.
I'm muted?
No, not you, Carlene. Sorry, David. Yeah.
I am muted. Yeah. Right. So thank you very much for that question. The initial thing I would ask is why are you passionate about solving that problem? Because this is not an easy problem to solve if you're going to go into that, right? This is a lot of competition. So let's start with that. You have a lot of competition. You have Catherine Speak, you have water with Wisinko. We have a lot of bottled water companies already in Jamaica. So you're going into a heavily competitive space with competitors who have far more capital and far more experience than you. So why would you want to go into this? You need to ask yourself that, right? You're choosing a 7-foot bar to jump over. I'll be probably a 5-foot bar, but this is a big bar to jump over, not a 1-foot bar. So that's my first thing. The second thing is that to get a plan, you would need to go and talk to a business development group. So they're called BDCs. If you go through the Jamaica Small Business Development, JBDC, they have access to them. The Development Bank of Jamaica also has BDCs that you can reach out to. So if you just call, literally you could call Development Bank of Jamaica and say, I have an idea for a startup, I want to launch a business. How can I get my initial plan done? They would be able to put you in touch with a BDC that would help you to develop that plan. Then you'd be able to see if it's more viable. Once you have that plan, then DBJ could be a source for initial capital. The other source of capital is going to be a small business loans company, to be honest. You're not going to get an investor for something like this unless it's friends and family. I'll be very honest. This is not something an investor is going to jump into at this stage. There's the most important thing that they're going to look at is founder market fit. Are you the right founder to execute this, which is going to be so competitive? And I don't know you, so hopefully maybe you are, but if you worked for water or worked for Catherine Speak or worked in the water filtration or reverse osmosis business before, now there's founder market fit. If you've never done it and you've never done another business as well, you're going to have some problems. And the example I use is that my first ever investor who wrote me a check asked me, tell me a business you failed at before. And so I told him about the one that we failed. And I said, that was interesting. Why you asked? I said, well, I only invest in people who failed at least once. I said, wow, that's interesting. Why? And he said, oh, because if you didn't fail before, then this is the first one, and you're going to fail at this one, and you're going to lose my money.
Okay.
Right.
Yes.
Thanks for that question, Carlene.
Thank you.
We have a question in the chat from Mark.
Yeah, man.
How do you go about appointing the right type of individual for your board of directors? And is it wise for a startup to establish a board of directors, or should they just establish a board of advisors?
Right. So I love that question and the way you phrase it, Ashley. So number one, you want advisory board, right? Board of directors have legal responsibility for the business. So for example, we're doing that right now. I have an advisory board. I am now building a board of directors. I have to purchase D&O insurance, directors and officers insurance, because directors are liable for that business and they don't want personal liability. So you start by getting an advisory board first, and that allows you to see what your working relationship is with people. How do you get people on your advisory board and pick the right people? And I love that he said right. Right is relative. It depends on what you need. Well, you first start off by saying, what are the areas of business that I need help with, right? You might need help with marketing. You need help with legal. You might need help on the finance side. Well, look for people who have those skill sets. But most importantly, you need to take some time to write down your mission. What is the mission of the business? What is the vision of the business I'm trying to build? What does it look like in 5 years? And then your values, write down the values of the business. When you interview somewhere to be an advisory board member or a director, that's what they're doing now, you send them that document that outlines the mission, the vision, and the values. And then you talk to them and see if you're in alignment. If you're not in alignment, do not put them on your board. You're going to have a problem. Make sure you find people, even when you hire teammates or co-founders, mission, vision, and values need to be in alignment. So write it down, send it to them. Talk to them. If they have a problem with any of those values, out. Have a problem with the mission or the vision, out. You have a bus that you're building and you have a destination. You want to get the right people on your bus and get the wrong people off your bus. Figure out what seats they go in later. Mission, vision, values need to be aligned. And startups don't need directors. Startups need advisors, mentors, coaches, sponsors. Sponsors walk into the meeting and sit with you. Mentors help you learn. Coaches directly help you. Advisors open doors. Oh, I see some interesting private questions. So this one, I'll have to answer this one because a few people are probably asking, what will it take for you to become my mentor? I've selected you to be my mentor through the DBJ mentorship program, which I'm on. I designed that mentorship program. And we previously met at a workshop. So I'm swamped with mentors right now. I'll be with mentees. I am trying to come up with a way to scale the mentorship program, but you can still email me, david@bloomerholecapital.com. We can stay in touch. We can at least do a 1 hour call. I do that all the time for people. Get you on my calendar. We talk and just help. It can be a weekly or bi-weekly thing. Maybe once a month we can touch base and go from there. But I'm trying to create a scalable mentorship program, like a mastermind. And so we will get there. So stay in touch on that one.
I'm seeing a question from Paula. Is the advisory board paid?
No. The advisory board is not paid. And as a startup, your startup board is not paid either. In most cases, your board of directors as a startup get equity, usually between 1% and 2%, and invest as well. But for them to put their name on there and show up in your deck, you're going to give them between 1% and 2% equity in the business. And that's how you get. So 5 people on your board is 10% equity you're giving up at that point. They better be good people, but you're going to give up between 5 and 10%. They do not get paid. Directors, advisors get paid later on. If you have an advisor who's asking for you to pay them, they're a consultant. They're not an advisor. They're a paid consultant. And there's nothing wrong with that. Sometimes that's what you need as well. Most people who want to be advisors have been successful in some way, and they want to pay it forward and help somebody else now do well and avoid the mistakes they made. Look for those people first. I've never gotten paid to be an advisor on anybody's company. I'm on boards right now, and I don't get paid to be on their boards. I got equity to go and sit on that board. I know it is in my interest to help the business scale because I own some equity, which is kind of nothing until it's scale, right? 2% of 0 is still 0. I need it to be 2% of $1 million. But that's a great question.
I see where Grace is also asking to repeat the type of insurance needed. I think that is referring to when you have.
So it's called D&O, Directors and Officers Insurance. Right. So I literally have to get a quote tomorrow for that. Directors and Officers Insurance. Because the person doesn't want to put their personal wealth and personal assets at stake. And you shouldn't either if you're on the board. So you want D&O insurance. So I like this. I've seen a few private ones came in. So I need to double check which one is an actual question versus which one is a comment.
I have a question while you double check that.
Sure, Kelly. I can see you. Great.
Thank you. Yes. My question is related to NDAs. You know, when you're discussing and sharing a lot of your information, there's a form sometimes in business plans. It seems like some people are okay with it and some people aren't. How important is that? What's your philosophy on non-disclosure agreements?
I will never sign an NDA, ever. I don't know a single investor in America who will sign an NDA. No VC will ever sign an NDA. In fact, if you ask them to sign an NDA, the VC just won't bother to deal with it ever again. Because it is a sign of a paranoid entrepreneur. Like,
what about consultants or?
Right, consultants have to sign NDAs. Staff members have to sign NDAs.
Got it.
Investors don't sign NDAs. Your consultants, your staff members, your board, they sign NDAs and they sign non-compete agreements and they sign non-solicitation agreements. And all of those should have at least a 2-year clause for after they no longer work with you. Non-solicitation means that they can't try and take your customers from you, right? That's number one, or take your investors. So that's one. You don't want that. Number two, non-compete means that they can't take your ideas after they helped you and then go and compete with you right out the bat. So usually that's 2 years. In some jurisdictions, it's illegal to have employees sign a non-compete. It can cause problems. It's being challenged in court in California right now. So for example, you're an engineer working for Google, you have a non-compete, you can't go and work for Apple because you're working on programming. That can be unfair. And then of course, NDAs, you do not want your board and your staff disclosing proprietary information without you first giving permission to it. So, but investors will never sign an NDA. You need to send that presentation. And you don't send a business plan to an investor. You send a deck. You send a pitch deck to them. If they then enter into an agreement, like a private equity fund would say, we like what we see. Now we're going to sign a non-binding letter of intent. We're going to do due diligence for the next 90 days. Then you sign the NDA. And then they're going to see your data. And they're going to dive in deep. But at the start, don't ever ask an investor to sign an NDA.
Investor and mentors and coaches know NDAs, but everybody else an NDA. I
would say your coach and your mentor should sign an NDA. Because they are going to be deeply in the guts of your business. Deeply in the guts. I mean, this is no longer idea, right? There's one thing to say, here's a problem, here's a solution, here's how large the market is, here's how I'm going to use the funds, here's how much money I want. That's fine. Anybody can figure that out. That's not complicated. When you now get to say, here is exactly who I'm targeting, I'm going to go through Facebook, I'm going to spend this amount of money to then target these specific people in these specific cities, in this country. The like secret sauce kind of stuff. Get them to sign that. No problem. Thank you, Kelly. Check in to see if anybody else.
Where Kevon has sent a question. What is the process for raising capital in multi-jurisdictions? What jurisdiction would you recommend?
I love that. So of course it depends. If you're coming to the United States to raise money, you need to be registered in the United States. No US investor wants to invest in an offshore company. So even if your business had traction in Jamaica, you're going to need to set up a parent company in Delaware and then do what's called an IP transfer. The intellectual property, the logos, all of that has to be transferred to the US-based entity, and it's Delaware is going to be the preference, and it's going to be a C Corp. If you're raising money out of the Caribbean, they don't care. It could be Jamaica, Barbados, St. Lucia. They care more about taxes in some cases. So it could be a St. Lucia IBC that raises money from Jamaica and Barbados. The St. Lucia IBC can do business in St. Lucia, though, right? You can have a Barbados IBC. So there's nothing wrong with being a Jamaican company to raise money from Jamaica, or a St. Lucia IBC to raise money in Jamaica. Proven Investments Limited is St. Lucia, for example. First Rock is St. Lucia. But if you come into the US, you need to be a US registered entity. And then you have to follow rules, though. Anytime you're raising, you can't just run around telling everybody, I'm raising money. You can't post on Twitter, I'm raising money. Like that's illegal. You get fined for that. You don't go to jail, but you get fined. Because it's called a private placement. You're only allowed to talk about certain things. So you have to be very careful. And that's where legal representation comes in. Your lawyer will guide you on what you can and can't say to the public. Right? I can talk to you individually. I can book you up at a party or at a networking event and tell you that I'm raising money. That's different. I can't advertise it in most cases, though. There are very specific rules. Certainly in the US especially, you cannot just run around saying you're raising money. You have to apply under a certain act, under the Jobs Act here in the US that President Obama passed. SEC has to approve it first. Then you can go and raise. And you can only raise from certain people other than your friends and family. Friends and family is just that little round. It's not formal. When you start raising, you can only raise from accredited investors in most cases. In Jamaica, that's a person that's earned 10 million Jamaican dollars per year for the last 2 years with a reasonable expectation of earning that again. Or they have a certain net worth, right? I think it's 30 million or something. On the US side, it's much higher than that. It is, you had 200,000 US in income each year for the last 2 years, single or joint 300,000 and expect that again. Or you have $1 million US net worth, not including your primary residence. They do not count your house that you live in as an asset. So $1 million not included. That's who you're allowed to raise money from. There's a way we've done it before. It's called a Reg D private placement in the US. You're allowed to raise money from up to 35 non-accredited investors. So your friends and family count as non-accredited. But it's strict rules when you're raising money in Jamaica and in the US. The FSC will come after you if you do it wrong. So get the right legal opinion.
I didn't know that. Thanks for all that information, because here I am thinking I could just drop a flyer on social media like, hey guys.
No. FSC will come after you if you do that.
I see where I think it is Debane.
Who is Michael?
1 second, Michael. There was a question in the chat. This is the last question in the chat. What type of businesses would you or other investors be interested in investing? here in Jamaica? After we answer this one, then Michael, you can ask.
Right. Well, so I'm going to have to keep the answer short. We are focused on initially 1 foot bar, so profitable existing businesses domiciled in strong long-term growth industries that we understand and we can help them to scale. So for now, we only invested in those, so both public and private. We're not doing stuff like restaurants, right? Margins need to be fairly high. We want free cash flow. So we are not, Blue Maho Capital is not an early stage investor. I need 1 foot bars. I need to start building, then I can take risks later. So we have very specific industries we care about. We care about technology. That's a strong long-term growth industry. We need to go from inefficiency towards efficiency. So we love that side. Anything in the renewable space we want to look at. We think people are focused too much on power generation rather than actually saving power. So, when you look at wind power is great, solar is great. Well, that's good, but how about we have energy conservation? Let's now have LED light bulbs, for example, and change out from incandescent. Like those opportunities, we think, are going to be great opportunities as well. Finance and access to finance, access to capital is an area that we like. So microfinance is going, and anything in the finance space we love. We think consumer packaged goods do have opportunity, especially when we look at durable goods versus discretionary spending. So CPG is an area that we would look at, but we more want to focus on consumer staples and consumer discretionary. But those covered, if you look at the UN 17 SDGs, the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, that pretty much covers where we would want to look at investing. Just Google UN, is the United Nations, UN Sustainable Development Goals, and you can figure out what industries we would want to look at. But we're starting with profitable existing businesses domiciled in strong long-term growth industries with nice margins and wide moats. We want that defensibility. We want high barriers to entry. Later on, we can take the risk. We have an impact fund that we're going to launch next year. That is going to be far less risk averse. That one can go in at the early stage and to a 50K, 100K kind of deal.
Okay, Michael, your turn.
2 quick questions. First, I wanted to expand on what Kelly was saying about the NDA.
Right.
What about dealing with key stakeholders? I find that they are a little bit hesitant, but I'm still vulnerable if they go and reveal, maybe not the secret sauce, but the major components that we discuss.
Well, you define who you would consider a key stakeholder that you'd be worried about revealing something. Is it like, for example, the manufacturer of the product that you've designed?
So I'm entering into sports, and we have to deal with a lot of the associations that really govern the teams.
Right.
We have to. It's actually their intellectual property, if you will, that we want to engage with, and
right.
We have to actually. They are a key partner to us.
So right. And you want them to sign an NDA?
I'm asking if, similarly to what you were saying about it being negative to investors, they are.
Oh, right. No, honestly,
as well.
So I don't know if it will be negative or not to them. I've never done a deal like that, and I don't know anybody that's done one. I've never read one, so I don't know. Any answer I give would just be literally my personal opinion based on no experience in that space. So I think my answer would just not be useful at this point. I think talk to them and feel them out. Just ask them point blank, have they signed NDAs in the past for these kinds of deals? And in that way, the answer will tell you, no, man, we hate NDA, we can't do that. Or, yes, we always sign NDAs. Now you know what to do. So ask first, and ask in a way that doesn't sound like you want them to sign an NDA. It's just that you're curious.
Okay.
Fair enough?
Yeah, fair enough.
All right. Yeah, the second question, or that's it?
That it slipped me just now. It was something that you were speaking about earlier, but sorry.
All right, if you come back. Yeah. I like Grace asked me, what's a nice margin? Gross margin, an amazing gross margin is about 50%, which is possible in software, right? We would want to see a net margin of 15%. So we want to see 15% margins in terms of net profit to your bottom line. I want to see a 50% net margin I would prefer to see a 50-55% gross margin. Software, we can get that up to 70-75% gross. But that is a margin I want to see, 15% net, or a way to get there. You probably start off at 5%, but 15% is a great number for us at a minimum. And then see one in here that's private. Do you have any suggestions for sources or strategies when you are researching local industries and markets, particularly where the firms in the industry are private, so they could not publicize their financial data? And so if they're private, you can't get the data. Like they are, and that's why a lot of companies in Jamaica are private. They don't want to share that. You're going to have to do serious research. So you cannot go dumpster diving. You can't go look in them bin to find the documents. So in most cases, Jamaica is very opaque when it comes to getting information. Here in the US, there are ways for us to get access to private market data. We don't have that in Jamaica. So I have no recommendation for the private side of data unless you talk to somebody that used to work there and they're not breaching their NDA, right? You can't get them to breach their NDA. That's dangerous. In terms of research in local industries and markets, you can start with Development Bank of Jamaica is one option. You can they have lots of stats. The Statistical Institute of Jamaica has a whole bunch of stats about stuff that's being sold and so on. So they actually have data. And then PIOJ, the Planning Institute of Jamaica, has a ton of data, and the taxpayers own that. So you can request information from PIOJ as well, the Planning Institute of Jamaica. Those would be the three that I would focus on going to first. You remember your question, Michael?
Well, I'm actually going to have to let us wrap up now. David, I'm just going to ask you if you want to drop your email address in the chat, or everyone can send me an email.
No, it's all right. I'll put it in there.
Okay, can drop it in the chat.
Everybody going to bomb my email now. Remember, guys, remember how investors say, we don't want our time wasted, so don't come to me with startups. Not yet. Startups are for next year. But you have questions?
Thank everybody for coming on today. Thanks, David, for making the time. I appreciate anytime you get a chance to come on board and do stuff with us. The group really does get some.
Brandon needs to email me. Anybody with questions, please email me the questions if you didn't get them answered on here, and then I'll answer them at least via email. And if it requires a call, we can do a quick call to go into more detail if you have that. So I see Brandon asking about student loans. So
look at all of these.
Answer in here, guys. And trust me, I am very accessible. You can follow me on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram. Do not send me a Facebook friend request. We're not friends. You can follow the page. You can follow me on Instagram. You can send me private messages. You'd be surprised. I'm extremely accessible and I answer questions. And I just want to be here and pay it forward.
And we are so happy that you're able to do that, David. A lot of entrepreneurs don't really have the time to give back when they have,
time. Okay, I'm going to leave everybody with this last thing. Right, here's the last thing I'm going to say, guys. Make time for what matters. I'm going to say it again. Make time for what matters. I made that mistake. I dropped the ball with my family when I was so focused on the business. I did not make time for what should have mattered. As an entrepreneur, it matters to me to pass on knowledge and to help you not repeat my mistakes. Go and make new mistakes. So make time for what matters.
Okay, guys, and I hope that everybody took notes. Remember, note takers are money makers.
Boom.
Sometimes tell my students. So I hope everyone got some notes. I got a question about the recording. We will try to make it accessible. I do believe that we tend to put these on our YouTube channel. I will confirm that after. Or
you can put it where? YouTube channel?
Well, maybe I'll have to cut the video based on your email address being available. But we'll talk about that after, David.
My email address is public. Don't worry. My email address is public.
Oh, okay, okay. So our next session is going to be Law for the Entrepreneur on Tuesday, August 4th at 2 o'clock. So we're going to have an hour of power. Today we had a little bit more than an hour, but we are grateful for it. So here's the registration link and the barcode. if anybody wants to grab that before we go, I'm also going to make it available on our social media pages. And I am very grateful for everyone that was able to join. These are social media pages that you can follow. And thanks everybody for making the time. And I look forward to seeing you all next week, Tuesday, where we're going to get down with the law. Thanks, guys. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Bye. Stay safe. Kana your yard.